Hello, students. Welcome to the lecture number 7 in the lecture number 7 of Company Law in the CA Foundation lecture series sponsored by Sri Jayendra Rank Zone. I'm your mentor, Sheikh Gehlot. So, now we are discussing about other classes of companies which come in the bracket of other classes of companies. Now, after discussing dormant company, other such company is a kind of a company is a Nidhi company. Okay, this Nidhi company is the Sanskrit word meaning thereby savings. Okay, savings, but it has been used here as to mean used to mean in the Companies Act it is used to mean as small saving company. Okay, so as the name suggests, a Nidhi company is a company which promotes a company which has been incorporated as a Nidhi with the object of cultivating the habit of thrift. Thrift means cost cutting, you have to cost cut yourself, and savings amongst its members. Okay, receiving deposit from and lending to its members only for their mutual benefit and which complies with such rules as Nidhi company. So Nidhi company is having how many of what kind of companies? Let's break this definition down. Incorporate Nidhi company with the object of what is the object? First is cultivating the habit of thrift. This is second object. And after you have cultivated the habit of thrifting, then if something is left with you, then you save it among its members. Receiving deposit from it will receive deposit from the members, lending to its members for their mutual benefit and which complies with such rules as Nidhi company. Okay, this is now we have broken the definition in different parts. Nidhi company is a company incorporated as a Nidhi company with the object of cultivating the habit of thrift, cost cutting. Okay, and saving among its members. Saving among its members only, not general public. Okay, restricted to members alone and not to public in general. Okay, that only members are allowed to contribute in this company and not any public person, like in the case of some other companies we have seen public can also contribute to the capital. Receiving deposit from it will receive deposits. Okay, it will operate kind of a small bank. Okay, it will operate kind of a small bank. It will receive deposit from whom? Its members will deposit, and then how these deposits will be used? Okay, to lending to its members only. This Nidhi company will provide loans to its members only on affordable rates. Okay, it will provide loans to its members only on affordable rates for their mutual benefit. Mutual benefit means business is such that it benefits all people. Okay, that means lending rates are less but not zero. Lending rates are less as compared to the other financial objects, other financial products, but not zero. Okay, so that some rate, some interest is also deposited, which is less interest is deposited by a member, and then that interest goes into the account for further lending. Okay, or as a profit, which complies with such rules as are Nidhi companies. This is a special class of company. It's a Nidhi company. It has a special object. There cannot be any other Nidhi company which has any other object. Okay. This is the exclusive object of the Nidhi company which has been specified in the act, that the object is cultivating habit of thrift and saving among its members. Okay, this is the only object, and then they will deposit and use it among each other. That is the only object of Nidhi company. Nidhi company cannot be a cricket company, it cannot be a club, it cannot be any other company. It can only be a company which is dealing with finance, small finances, contribution by its members and lending to its members only. This is a Nidhi company, small saving company. Public financial institutions, PFIs is the abbreviation of it, By the virtue of Section 2/72 of Companies Act 2013, the following institutions are regarded as public financial institutions. These institutions are regarded as public financial institutions. First is the Life Insurance Corporation of India, established under the Life Insurance Corporation Act 1956. The Infrastructure Development Finance Company Limited, IDFC for small, we say IDFC Bank is there. That is the Public Financial Institution of India. Specified company referred to in the Unit Trust of India, UTI. Okay. Act 2002. Institutions notified by the central government under Section 4A, Subclause 2 of the Companies Act 1956, so repealed under Section 465 of this Act. Now it is in 465, earlier it used to be in 4A2 of the Companies Act 1956. Such other institutions as may be notified by the central government in consultation with the Reserve Bank. Okay, so these are the institutions which has been prescribed by the Companies Act, which are to be referred to as public financial institutions. They are institutions which are receiving finance from a large base of public, like LIC. Okay, it is using a premium from almost 2 3 10 crore people in the India, and then using it for the financial activities as well at the same time. Same is with the other companies notified in this list. And this list is not exhaustive. By saying exhaustive, I mean to say this list is not finite. Okay, this list does not end with these companies. Okay, there may be other companies which can be notified by the central government in the consultation with the Reserve Bank of India. Why? Because financial companies are dealt in with the Reserve Bank of India, so any other company may still be made part of it. These are public financial institutions. Condition for an institution to be notified as public financial institution. Okay, these are the conditions which any institution has to fulfill in order to be notified as a public financial institution. No institution shall be so notified unless now this is what any institution has to comply with if it wants to be categorized as a public financial institution. If any of these conditions is not fulfilled, then definitely it is not going to be notified. It has been established or constituted by or under any central or state act. First condition is that it has to be constituted under central or state act. That means it's totally going to be a public concern. Like we discussed, LIC or UTI. Okay, they are incorporated by a special act of the government. We have an LIC act, we have a UTI act. Okay, we have an RBI act, we have an SBI act. Okay, like this. Not less than 51% of the paid up share capital is held or controlled by the central government or by any state government or governments, or partly by a central government or state government or etc, or the combination. That means, because in any case a institution which wants to be a public financial institution, it ultimately has to be a government company. Government company, as we have discussed, what is a government company? This is a government company. More than 51% shares held by the government or by a combination of different governments. Okay, now let us proceed to the formation of companies. Okay, now how a company is formatted, how a companies come into picture. In this series, the first person, who is the most important person for the company, is called a promoter. The incorporation of a company begins with a promoter. What is a promoter? Okay, now let us understand who is the word promoter. Promoter usually in a literal sense means someone who is promoting. Who is promoting, endorsing, advertising, publicizing a company. Okay, like we can say, suppose some new Tata company come into picture now. Suppose say Tata Capital. Tata starts a company called Tata Capital for financial activities, and now Ratan Tata goes on to meet people. Okay, Ratan Tata Ratan Tata meets the people for the setting up of the company, and then he also issues statements that we are bringing the company and such and such. So this person Ratan Tata himself is a brand. Okay, so this person Ratan Tata himself is a brand, or suppose now say here Shekhar Tata. Okay, just assume I am also a Tata and I am promoting this particular company, Tata Capital. But how will I promote it? I'll meet people, I'll collect the subscribers, I'll collect the initial subscription, I'll meet with the financial institutions, I'll float my idea into the public that there is some company going to be the Tata Capital company. And who is saying this? Shekhar Tata is saying this. Okay, or say even remove Tata because Tata's name carries some weight. Shekhar Gehlot is saying so. But who is Shekhar Gehlot? Maybe some 2 3, maybe some 50 60 70 people may be knowing me, or let us say let us assume 500 people at the best may know me or may have some kind of association with me. But am I a brand? Am I a public brand? No, I am not definitely a public brand. Okay, so public is not going to come on my invitation and enter into Tata Capital. They do not know me. Who am I? But yes, if Ratan Tata does so, Ratan Tata is definitely a brand. Crores and crores of people know him. So when he says something, when he makes a statement, it matters a lot. So when he makes a statement that a company like Tata Capital is going to be in picture, people are going to be hyped about this company and people are going to invest their hard-earned money into this company. So that is the role of a promoter. It is only in the name of a promoter that a company runs. Company comes into the picture and company becomes a successful company. Promoter's name has a magnet. The promoter is that magnet which mobilizes all the resources initially for the company. Okay, now you have a fine understanding of what I am talking about by a promoter. Now let us go to the definition provided by the act. The Companies Act 2013 defines the term promoter under section 2 subclause 69, which means a person. So promoter has to be a person. Okay. Who has been named as such in a prospectus or is identified by the. So now person means, person here is, person can be a legal person, natural person, as well as a legal person. Okay, so in place of Ratan Tata, Tata Sons could also be a promoter, or Reliance Industries can also be a promoter of Tata Capital. It need not be Mukesh Ambani himself. Okay, so a person means any person. So who has been named as such in a prospectus? So when a company comes into picture, it issues a prospectus. Okay, we'll deal about it later on. It issues a prospectus, and if that person is named as a promoter in the prospectus, okay. Now suppose Ratan Tata is the biggest brand. Okay, a company is being promoted by whom? Ratan Tata, Ambani, Shekhar. A company is being jointly promoted by these three people. Okay, so Ratan Tata and Ambani, they people are brand. Shekhar is not a brand, so nobody cares who this Shekhar is. People would not even listen to this person or would not even care about this person. But because these two names are there, the promotion of the company will happen. But still, my name is being written here as a promoter, though I did not contribute at all. Okay, but just because I am being mentioned here as a promoter, I will become a promoter, though I have no qualities in me right now to become a promoter of the company. Company is being promoted majorly by these people. I am also in the advertisement, I am also everywhere, I am also meeting people, but ultimately it does not have that much effect. Okay, it has, I can say almost a negligible effect. Okay, but major effect is by these two people. But still the company writes my name that Shekhar is also a promoter in our prospectus. That will make me a promoter irrespective of my appeal with the people. I may be dealing with the people, I may not be having a dealing with the people, but still when my name comes up in the prospectus, I automatically become a promoter, or is identified by the company in the annual return referred to in section 92. When the company files its annual return, they write my name or the name of any other person like Ratan Tata Ambani that these are our promoters, then such person shall be called a promoter. Or or, okay, means any other person can also be, who is not mentioned, any person who is not mentioned in the prospectus or not referred in the annual return, can he be a promoter? Yes, he can also be a promoter. How? Because it says, or it further goes on, who has control over the affairs of the company directly or indirectly, whether as a shareholder, director, or otherwise. Who has the control of the affairs? So a person not named as a promoter can also be a promoter. Okay, how can he also be a promoter? By when he has control over affairs. When someone has control over affairs, okay, the most easy way to have the control of the affairs of the company is through having shareholding. Large shareholder. Okay, if someone is large shareholder, when someone is large shareholder, he's definitely have a control over the company. He has a power to dictate and decide what a company should do. Okay, or he can be a director. Okay, because directors also constitute the board of director, which takes a lot of vital decisions for the functioning of the company. So a director can also be a promoter when he is having key decision making powers. Every director is not having key decision making powers. There are certain directors like chief executing director or the managing director. Okay, so every director automatically will not become a promoter. We'll have to see whether he as a director has the control of affairs. Every director, individual director, cannot have the control of the affairs, or every large shareholder cannot have the control of the affairs. Okay, suppose a large shareholder is having 29% voting right. 29% voting right. 29% is in itself a humongous shareholding being held by a single individual, but still he may be defeated by the rest 71% in decision making.
It's 3 o'clock.
So though this person is a large shareholder, but he may still not be a promoter because he does not have control over the affairs. Why he does not have control over the affairs? Because his control is being defeated by other 71% majority. Either directly or indirectly. Okay, so someone can have control as either directly when he is a large shareholder or he is a director. Okay, or he is a holding company, he is a part of holding company. These are the methods he is doing directly, or there can be indirectly as well. Okay, how can someone be a promoter of the company indirectly? Okay, when he has indirectly has control over the company. Okay, he indirectly has control over the company. How can someone have indirect control of the company when he's not a shareholder, he's not a director, he's having no connection with the company, but still he becomes indirectly a promoter. How does he become indirectly the promoter? Because he has control. How does he have indirect control? I'll just give you an illustration. Suppose our country, not our country, every country, we people are very religious. People naturally are mostly religious and have faith in each other. Suppose Ram sets up a company, ABCL Limited. Okay, Ram sets up a company, ABCL Limited. Now what happens? Ram has faith in a particular religious guru. Okay, India especially is a land of gurus. You will find one guru after every 20-30 kilometers range. So there are a lot of gurus. Some are good, some are bad. Okay, so Ram has faith in a particular guru. Say the guru's name is Ashok. Ashok is a religious guru, religious head. Okay, now Ram acts according to the wishes of Ashok. Whatever Ashok will tell, being the guru of Ram, Ram will follow it. Okay, so decisions for the company, are also taken by Ashok. Okay, why? Because Ashok controls Ram. So now Ashok, though Ashok as a guru is not a shareholder of the company, he is neither a director of the company, he is not related to the company in any case, but he has a control over Ram, and Ram is the main owner of the company. Okay, main shareholder of the company. So through Ram, he can control the affairs of the company. So he Ashok in this case will also become a promoter. Okay, or we can take the example of coalition governments. Coalition government. Okay, though the chief minister may be coming from one party, but other party which is supporting the government also becomes a key player. They also control the wills of the chief minister. They also controls how chief minister or prime minister will behave or what bill will be passed in the parliament. Okay, they are now indirectly controlling it. Okay, in accordance with whose advice, or again, even if a person is not filling in this criteria, then also he can be a promoter. How he can be a promoter? In according with whose advice, directions or instructions the board of directors of the company is accustomed to act. They are accustomed to act. Okay, in that person's advice. Okay, so advice can be, this can be applied in this case as well, that board of directors are accustomed to take advice from the Ashok. Okay, but let's take another example. Example is Tata. Tata Group presents a very good example of this particular promoter. Okay, this particular para in which it says, in accordance to whose advice, directions or instructions the board of directors of the company is accustomed to act. Now, what happened in the Tata Group? Tata Group chairman was Cyrus Mistry. Cyrus Mistry was the Tata Group chairman. Also, Cyrus Mistry is biggest shareholder in Tata. Still, the board of directors removed him on the advice of Ratan Tata. Okay, though Ratan Tata is not having a large shareholding in the Tata Group, and you cannot compare his shareholding with the shareholding of Cyrus Mistry. Cyrus Mistry is the largest shareholder in Tata. Okay, he's holding shares worth rupees 2 lakh crores or even more than that in the Tata Group, and he's the largest shareholder, and he was the chairman as well of the Tata Group in 2016. But what happened? The board of director was accustomed to the advice, direction, and instructions of Ratan Tata. Why Ratan Tata? Because Ratan Tata has been a very thoughtful, wise, and well liked director of Tata or chairman of Tata for a very long time. Okay, so they are very much accustomed to act into his as per his wishes. So they removed, the board of director removed its own chairman, who is not only a chairman but the largest shareholder, on the advice of Ratan Tata. This is an example of how someone can be a promoter in all these three individual categories. In simple terms, we can say person who form the company are known as promoters, person who incorporate the company are known as promoters. It is they who conceive the idea of forming the company. They take all necessary steps for its registration. It should, however, be noted that persons acting only in a professional capacity, like solicitor, banker, accountant, are not regarded as promoters. Okay, now what happens? Solicitor is a lawyer, or banker and accountant. Now these people will definitely advise. Now Ram is going to set up a company. Okay, now he'll take legal advice because Ram has no knowledge of the law. Okay, Ram is a simple man. He takes advice from an advocate, Advocate Shekhar. For example, he takes advice from Advocate Shekhar. Now I'll definitely tell him, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, and Ram will act as per my directions now. Okay, so now if we look at it into this thing, that according to advice, direction, the board of director of the company is accustomed to act. Now we people are banker, accountant, we are telling Ram all the time, you do this thing with the company, you do you that thing with the company, and Ram or the board of directors is working as per our professional advice. But will that make us a promoter? If we go by the direction, yes, it will make us a promoter, but this is an exception. Okay, why? Because we are professional people, it is our job to advise. Okay, so it's bankers, accountants, it's their job to advise on the legal aspects, and the company should follow the professional guidance, but we do not become the promoter. Okay, this is an exception. So this is what a promoter is in a detailed manner. So you don't have to every time understand a promoter with a person who is the largest shareholder of the company. Okay, a promoter can come in different shapes and sizes. This person who has control of the affairs indirectly, this person is also, this concept is also a new concept. This concept, you just forget these words. Okay, you just forget this word, assume that this word is not there. You just read this sentence like this: who has a control of the affairs of the company indirectly. Okay, now this person, this concept is called the concept of a shadow director. Shadow director, and this is the new concept which has been added by company amendment, company act 2013. Earlier this shadow promoter or shadow directors concept was not prevalent, but it was prevalent in other jurisdictions like USA and UK, so we incorporated it from their example. Now, formation of the company, how a company can be formed. Okay, a company, formation of the company, first of all we need a promoter. Okay, now after we have a promoter, now these are the after steps. Section 3 of the Companies Act 2013 deals with the basic requirement with respect to the constitution of the company. This is only the basic requirement. Advanced requirements may be different, okay, depending upon the name and the size and the nature of the company. These are only basic requirements with respect to the constitution of the company. Excuse me. In the case of a public company, now in the case of public company, any 7 or more persons can form a company for any lawful purpose by subscribing their names to the memorandum and complying with the requirements of this act in respect of registration. Okay, in the case of public company, any 7 or more person, definitely they can subscribe their name in the memorandum, and after complying with the acts, with the registration process of this company, the company will be registered as a public company. In exactly the same way, 2 or more persons can form a private company, and one person where company be formed is one person company. Okay, so these are the basic requirements. Basic requirement means for public you need minimum 7 members, for private you need 2 members, and for one person companies at least one individual, one natural person has to be there. Now, steps for the incorporation of the company. Let me make some changes here. Okay, now what is the procedure to be followed for incorporation of a company? First of all, filing of the documents and information with the registrar. Okay, first of all, what you will do for the registration of the company is you will file the documents and information with the registrar. Okay, for the registration of a company, following documents and information are required to be filled with the registrar. Now, filing documents and information. What documents you have to file with the registrar is being explained here. This thing is giving me a good headache today. Okay, now what documents are required to be filed? These are the documents required to be filed with the registrar. For the registration of company, following documents and information are required to be filed with registrar within whose jurisdiction the registered office of the company is proposed to be situated. Okay, within whose jurisdiction. Suppose your registered office is going to be in Mumbai. So one will go to the registrar at Mumbai. Okay, if it's going to be in Delhi, then he'll go to the registrar at Delhi. So it is with that registrar you will file these documents. What documents you will file? The memorandum of article of the company duly signed by all the subscribers to the memorandum. Okay, first is the memorandum and articles of the company. Memorandum is memorandum of association and articles of association. We'll deal with these memorandum and articles in later slides, but just now go through the procedure. Memorandum and articles of the company duly signed by all the subscribers to the memorandum, whoever are the initial subscribers. Like for the public company there are 7 subscribers, private company 2. Each will sign each page of the memorandum as well as the article. Okay, each page they have to sign. A declaration by a person, who is engaged in the formation of company. Okay, like sometimes companies are formed, these processes are fulfilled by some other people like advocate or chartered accountant, etc. So or company secretary, they will give a declaration. Okay, and by a person named in the articles. Two declarations will go, one by a person named in the one person who is engaged in the formation of company, an advocate or chartered accountant, etc. And other declaration by a person named in the articles. Articles will specify, basically these people are deciding who will give a declaration on the behalf of company. This person is giving on the behalf of his profession, that as per the profession I find no difficulty, and they are giving declaration as per the company. He can be a director or manager or secretary of the company. Okay, that now what is the declaration which these two people will give? Separate, that all requirements of this act and the rules made thereunder in respect of registration and matters precedent or incidental thereto have been complied with. They will give a declaration that the all the procedures for the for forming up of a company have been duly complied with. Okay, there is no shortcoming in the documents. Then an affidavit from each of the subscriber to the memorandum and from persons named as the first director, if any, in the articles, stating that. Okay, now a, an affidavit will come from each subscribers, like 1, 2 or 7 people. They will give affidavit each of them. Okay, now what is the affidavit? Affidavit which they are supposed to give is that he is not convicted of any offense in connection with the promotion, formation or management of any company. Okay, so first declaration this person will give in the affidavit is that he is not convicted of an offense in connection with the promotion, formation or management of the company. Bullet point is committed no offense. These are the bullet point for your reference later on, that this person has committed no offense. Who is filing this affidavit? Each subscriber to the memorandum. Okay, 2 in the case of private company and 7 in the case of a public company. he has not been found guilty of any fraud or misfeasance or any breach of duty to any company under this act or any previous company law during the last 5 years. Okay, no act of fraud within last 5 years from date of affidavit. Okay, this is the second declaration which he has to give. And that all the documents filed with the registrar for registration of the company contain information that is correct and complete and true to the best of his knowledge and belief. Okay, this is the last declaration he has to give. Declaration of truth, we can say that all the declarations are true and correct. For the bullet point, true statement, declaration of true statements. Okay, now after this, apart from the affidavit, what will company provide? Company will provide the address for correspondence till its registered office is established. Okay, because registered office will come up only after the formation of the company. So till the time till the company is not permitted, if some communication has to be made by the registrar with these people who are trying to set up a company, then at what address will this communication be registered? We uh, posted to. Okay, so this address. The particulars, names including surname or family names, residential names, nationality of every subscriber to the memorandum along with proof of identity, and in case of a subscriber being a body corporate, such particulars may be prescribed. Okay, now apart from this, they will have to give their full name, surname, family name, residential address, their nationality, etc. for every subscriber. Okay, and in private and public companies, subscriber can be a body corporate as well. Okay, another company can set up another company and be its initial subscriber other than one person company. So all these requirements will have to be submitted. Basic requirements are there. We can call it, I'll just give the bullet points for all these things as well. Okay, this is called memorandum clause, memorandum clause. Okay, and this is declaration clause, declaration clause, address clause, identity clause, the particulars, names including surname or family member of directors of persons mentioned in the article as subscriber to the memorandum, as such other particulars including proof of identity as may be prescribed. Okay, these are both identical. Okay, only thing is you are going to provide a director identification number here. The particulars of the interest of the person mentioned in the article as first directors of the company in other firms or bodies corporate, along with their consent to act as directors of the company in such form and manner as may be prescribed. Interest clause. Okay, this means if someone is going to be made as a director, okay, and he's mentioned in the article of association that Ram is going to be the director, first director of the company, then whether he is also a director in any other company, and if he is a director in any other company, then a consent from the board of director of other company that we approve Ram to be a first director of this company as well. Okay, so their consent has to be provided. Consent clause. Particular provided in this provision shall be of the individual subscriber and not of the professional engaged in the incorporation of the companies. Okay, now in these it is just a kind of clarification that the particulars required are only for the purpose only for the people who are individual subscribers, okay, not the professionals engaged. That means these declarations are not supposed to be given by people who are engaged in the setting of a company, like an advocate or a chartered accountant or a banker, etc. These people, these professional people only need to provide one affidavit and their duty is done. Now what will happen after that? Once all these formalities are done, once all these formalities as we discussed above are complied with, then the other stage is issuance of certificate of incorporation on registration. The registrar, on basis of documents and information filed, shall register all the documents and information in the register and issue a certificate of incorporation in the prescribed form to the effect that proposed company is incorporated in the act. Okay, he'll give a certificate that will say something like this. This is to certify that ABCL has been duly incorporated as a private company on this date. Okay, this date may be anything. This kind of certification he will give, then and then only a company will be deemed to be incorporated. From this date, from this date onwards, this company will come into picture and will can start commence its business. Okay, then what company has to do after that? After that, after issue of certificate of incorporation, allotment of corporate identity number. Okay, okay, now allotment of corporate identity number, sin number. CIN is corporate identity number. On and from the date mentioned in the certificate of incorporation, the registrar shall allot to the company a corporate identity number which shall be a distinct identity for the company and which shall also be included in the certificate. Okay, so this is kind of a Aadhaar card, Aadhaar card of the company. Okay, a unique number will be given to the company, like suppose it 2867 something, whatever I'm writing, 2365875. This company will be known from this particular identity number. This is the identity number of the company, corporate identity number. These are the steps one after another which we are following here. Okay, after this step, maintenance of the copies of all documents and information. The company shall, now what is the, this is the duty of the company. The company shall maintain and preserve at its registered office copies of all documents and information as originally filed till its dissolution under the act. Dissolution means winding up. Till the time company is not wound up, till the time company is functioning, suppose company is functioning for till next 500 years, then these documents which it filed at the time of incorporation, it has to preserve them in the original form and it has to maintain them. Okay, how will they maintain it? That is the headache of the company, but they have to do so. They are supposed to maintain it. Now, if a company is found to have furnished false or incorrect information or suppression of material fact at the time of incorporation, like at the time of incorporation we discussed, you are supposed to file some declarations. Okay, suppose a director has filed a false declaration that he has not committed any offense within 5 years. Okay, but he has actually committed it. Okay, or there is some other information which is false, like the consent provided by one of the directors is a fabricated consent. So that will be a furnishing of false or incorrect information or suppression of material fact. Then what will happen in that case? If any person furnishes any false or incorrect particulars of any information or suppresses any material information of which he is aware in any of the documents filed with the registrar in relation to the registration of company, he shall be liable for action for fraud under section 447. A case shall be registered against him and he shall be liable for the fraud under section 447, and he may be held liable for committing fraud under the provision of Indian Penal Code as well. Okay, of which he is aware. That means if he is not aware, if its mistake happened due to ignorance, no fraud. Fraud has to be with knowledge and deliberate attempt. Okay, it says of which any material information of which he is aware. Okay, if he can prove that I was not aware and this information which is now proved to be a fraud came into the documents because of some ignorance of fact, then no fraud is committed. He shall not be liable for any action. He will be liable only for the action when the fraud is committed with the knowledge that yes, actually indeed I am committing a fraud. Okay, and deliberately he is doing so. Company already incorporated by furnishing any false or incorrect information or representation by suppressing any material fact. Now, what will happen if a company is already incorporated by supplying a false information? Okay, where at any time after incorporation of a company, it is proved that the company has been got incorporated by furnishing any false. It is proved. Okay, it has to be first proved. It we cannot just on the basis of information take action. It has to be first proved, not only upon the information. By furnishing any false or incorrect information or representation, or by suppressing any material fact or information in any of the documents or declaration filed or made for incorporating such company, or by any fraudulent actions. The promoters, the person named as the first directors of the company, and the persons making declaration under this section shall each be liable for action. Okay, and if such company has already been incorporated and information has been furnished is false and fabricated, and it is proved, then all these people who, all the person making the declaration, all the initial subscribers, the first directors, and the promoters, and the lawyer and the banker who have given the information will be liable to action for fraud under section 447, but again this fraud has to be a deliberate attempt. Merely ignorance will not become a fraud. Order of the tribunal. Now what will happen when a company is found to be registered on fabricated documents? Then the case will definitely go to the tribunal. Okay, case will go to the tribunal. Where a company has got incorporated by furnishing false or incorrect information or representation, or by suppressing any material fact or information in any of the documents or declaration filed or made for incorporating such company, or by any fraudulent actions, the tribunal may or may not, on the application made to it, on being satisfied that the situation so warrants. Okay, tribunal is satisfied that actually this has happened, and now in this case this has to be done. Tribunal can make following orders. Okay, pass such orders as it may think fit for regulation of the management of the company, including changes, if any, in its memorandum and articles in public interest or in the interest of the company and its members and creditors. Okay, now the company has come into picture. Okay, but the company has supplied false information. Now what tribunal can do? Tribunal can pass orders, it can make changes into the management, and it can make changes into the memorandum and articles of associations. Whatever required changes are there, but whatever tribunal should do, tribunal cannot make those changes just because tribunal wants. Those changes should be in the public interest or in the interest of company and its members and its creditors. Okay, so whatever tribunal is doing, whatever change, yes, tribunal can make a change in the memorandum and articles, but whatever change tribunal is going to make, tribunal must carefully examine that such change has to be in public interest or in the interest of company. Now suppose there is a change which is not having any public interest involved or the interest of company or member or creditor, then that change will not stay, it will be set aside in the appeal. Direct that liability of the members shall be unlimited. It can make the liability of the members unlimited. Okay, if it feels that company has made some claims and by filing some false information, company has procured, suppose a company has come into picture by falsification, fraud company, and has raised 50 crore from people. Okay, but the company does not have any asset now. Okay, now because this company was a fraud company, now this company, these directors, 3 4 5 directors, whatever they are, they cannot run away from this 50, returning from this 50 crore people by saying that no, the money is taken by the company and the company has suffered loss, so now this 50 crore rupees of the people also goes into loss. No, in this case the liability could be made unlimited. In this case the personal responsible for it, members may be asked to have a unlimited liability towards the creditors. Direct removal of the name of the company from register of the companies. It can direct removal that the name of the company should be removed from the register of the companies. Pass an order for the winding up of a company. A company can be wound up as well, liquidated, dissolved. Okay. Pass such other order as it may deem fit, or pass any other order which may deem appropriate in the given circumstances. Provided that before making any order. Further, now Act says that the tribunal can make these orders. Okay, when can tribunal make these orders? when an application has been made to it. Who will make an application? Either creditors can make the application, or the registrar of companies, or the government can make this application to a tribunal. When such, and what this tribunal is? National Company Law Tribunal. Also known as NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. Okay, when this National Company Law Tribunal will do so? When an application is made to it. Who has made this application? Either a creditor is going to make this application, or the registrar of companies, or the government. And when it is satisfied that any such order is required in such situation, then it can pass these orders which we have just discussed. Okay, so these orders can be passed, but it is provided means it's a rider, it's a proviso that before doing this you should do this. Okay, before passing any order you should follow this, provided that before making any order the company shall be given a reasonable opportunity of being heard in the matter. Okay, reasonable opportunity means the company has actually a real opportunity to present its stand. Reasonable means real opportunity. It cannot be that today the company law tribunal issues a summon and says by tomorrow you present a reply or I'll wind you up. That is not a real or reasonable opportunity. It should be at least 14, 15 days or 30 days should be given to company to prepare the reply, to arrange their legal team. Okay, so opportunity has to be reasonable, or the tribunal cannot say you come in the midnight. It cannot be possible. So opportunity has to be a reasonable opportunity of being heard in the matter. Suppose some tribunal has ordered something and it is challenged on the grounds of that no reasonable opportunity was being provided, then the upper forum, if feels so, it can set aside the order of the tribunal only upon this base, that yes, no reasonable opportunity of being heard was provided to the company. The tribunal shall take into consideration the transactions entered into by the company, including the obligations, if any, contracted or payment of liability. Now, tribunal before making any such order, okay, after giving this opportunity, shall consider this as well, that what transactions they have entered, the company has entered, what are the obligations of company, okay, and what liability company has to pay. Suppose company has to pay 50 crore rupees, 50 crore rupees, okay, to Ram. Ram is a creditor. He has he has supplied something to the company. But company's assets are only 20 crore rupees. Now, who will pay this next week? 30 crore rupees, the balance 30 crore rupees to Ram. In this case, tribunal can make the order of making the members liability unlimited, that you pay for this rest 30 crore rupees. Or suppose in situation company's liability is 50 crore but company's assets are 70 crore. Company's assets are 70 crore. So now in this case company is having 20 crore extra cash. Then criminal may make an order that you pay 50 crore to this particular person. Okay, then rest 20 crore you pay it as a fine to the government. Okay, and in which clause can it be said? It can be said in this case, pass such orders as it may deem fit. That because you people have accumulated this wealth by committing fraud, you people are not entitled to keep this wealth, so you pay this to the government, deposit this money with the government. These are the actions. The tribunal, what is the tribunal? Tribunal is National Company Law Tribunal, and the appellate tribunal is National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, that is also known as NCLAT, is the appealing forum. Okay, this is the tribunal which will make a decision in these parameters. Then appeal will lie to NCLAT, and then after the order of NCLAT, final appeal shall go to the Supreme Court of India.